Chuck, I just wondered whether you could start off by just telling us a little bit about what happened to you with the accident and how you sustained your brain injury.
So the date always sticks in my mind. It was January 28th, 2018. I was turning into my driveway, which is on a very busy road. And the gentleman behind me wasn't paying attention. He was in a very large truck and he hit me from behind going about 50 miles per hour. Sorry for the rest of the world that uses metric. I don't know how to convert, but it's fast. And he hit me so hard, he broke my seat. And I had a speaker sitting behind me from a work event I did. And when I hit back, I hit my head on my speaker and my brain hit the front of my skull and then the back of my skull. And I was unconscious for about a minute and a half. My neck was all floppy. I remember that. I thought it was funny in the hospital that to look at the nurse, I had to grab my hair and hold my head up because I couldn't. It reminded me of a cartoon character. And that was just kind of the images of that day. Afterwards, I really can't tell you what happened for the next couple months. It's really foggy, kind of like the snow on an old television set when you're changing stations and you can't quite remember. I was easy to anger. I couldn't handle loud noises, bright flashing stimulus. It really just sharp piercing things would happen in my brain. I used to be able to read for 8 hours at a time, and suddenly I couldn't read for more than 5, 10, 15 minutes without an excruciating migraine happening. And I just remember getting so angry that the person I was before was no longer present. And a lot of that anger and rage and just frustration I was feeling was waiting for the old me to come back. And about, 2.5 months in, someone had pointed out to me, and I don't exactly remember where this came from. And I wish I did, because I'd really like to go give that person a hug. They said, you can't wait for who you were to come back. Unfortunately, that person is gone. And as a result of the head injury, who you were is no longer who you are now. And instead of waiting for who you were to come back, you have to accept who you are now and what's going on now. And the limitations of not being able to read, the limitations of not being able to listen to music like I liked, or play video games or watch television. And that by accepting these things and setting a goal of where I'd like to move towards, I now have something that won't cause frustration, but motivation. To learn that, yeah, that person is gone. That was a hard thing. That took a lot of time. That took a lot of energy for me to process. The person I was before isn't the person I am now. And if you're sitting there with a head injury, or you've got a family member who's got a head injury, it's okay to be upset. It's okay to be frustrated, and it's okay to feel lost. That's normal. But it's also okay to set that goal and to let that be your guiding light of what you'd like to work towards. I had an amazing team of therapists. My wife was amazingly supportive. Quite honestly, it was very hard for her because of me. I, in my mind, 2 + 2 = 5. And I would argue for that reality. And, 2 + 2 doesn't equal 5. But if that's the basis for everything you're thinking about, you have a warped view of reality. I wasn't seeing things as they truly were. And I was basing my whole lifestyle because I was used to being correct. My assessment of reality was correct. Why wouldn't it be correct now? And at my darkest day, I told my wife that I thought I was worthless, that I wasn't adding anything to the family, and that we should get a divorce. Thankfully, she had done a little bit of research and found out that sometimes people with head injuries say dumbass things. So if you have a head injury and you say dumbass things, apologize, but don't put too much weight on it. She told me, in fact, 2 + 2 was 4, that I wasn't allowed to make big lifestyle decisions right now because I wasn't looking at the world correctly. And in fact, I was kind of being an asshole about it, which looking back at it, I was. And if you're watching this for the first time, that's exactly what I needed to hear. My wife and I have been together for 15 years, almost married for 15 years, been together almost 20. So at this point, 17 years into our relationship, she knew what I had to hear to listen. That might not be what your loved one needs to hear. So don't go off my story and just call your significant other an asshole unless they deserve it or they need to hear it. Make that choice for you. And when she said that, I was at a point where I could listen. And I'm thankful that I was at a point where I could listen. And it was a hard thing. It was a hard thing to know that as an adult, I wasn't cognitively able enough to make adult decisions. And that was hard. But, you know, I had an amazing group of people for support. 3 years later, I still have trouble listening to loud music. I still have trouble, you know, if I get overstimulated, but I've got a lot of tools and there's a lot of resources out there that can really help. I've got a new profession. I was a bartender for 16 years. I can't work in a bar anymore. But thankfully, before this had happened, I was already switching professions. Now I get to teach breath work. I have a nice, lovely job. I'm not stressed out by it. I did have to completely change my life. I did have to completely change what I did for a lot of things, and that's okay. That change is okay. Find the things that you love to do and do them. And, you know, people can look at someone with a brain injury and say, well, that's an invisible illness. I don't even know you're hurt. Don't let that bother you. If they don't understand what you're going through, they're not trying to make you feel bad. They just don't understand. And when someone says it's all in your head, it is. That doesn't make it imaginary. That's what a brain injury is. It's in your head. So if your reality is a little different and you're like, it's still not quite right, that's probably true for you. It's not quite right, but it can get better. Work with people, find a support group. There's amazing, amazing resources all over this website. Ask questions, be honest, and don't expect the impossible. Go for the practical. Small shifts every day will lead to that big change you're looking for. I can't read for 8 hours yet, but that's one of my goals still. I listen to audiobooks now. And if you were to ask me years ago what the most luxurious thing in the world was, I'd tell you a warm pair of socks from the dryer. That's just amazing. That's luxury to me, is having that nice, comfortable feeling. Now my answer is to have someone read a book to me. To sit down and to have someone read you a story is luxury. And I'd never have found that without my accident. You know, people say turn your trials and tribulations into a benefit. It can't happen all the time, and it won't happen with everything, but you have that choice. You can either make this something that makes you stronger, or it can be something that crushes you. And it's the same instance regardless of what you let it do. So please take this opportunity to get a little stronger. It's okay. You're not alone. You're definitely not crazy. And, you know, take each day as it is. Slow your breath down, reduce that stimulus, set your goals, and move forward. Thanks for listening to a guy with a head injury babble about what makes him feel better. Thanks for listening.
Thank you so much, Chuck.